Island Talk Express is KCAA.
Live and in color from the NBC News radio broadcasting studios of KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, located in beautiful Southern California, and in parallel from the Turf's Up radio studio in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Thanks for tuning in to the Water Zone show this evening.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Water Zone show, where everybody is, and I hope you're doing well, whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening, depending where you are in this glorious world. And thanks again for joining us, and we're very happy to be here with you. Got a great show today, and my co-host here, I'm Rob Starr, along with Miss Tara Mullally, and she is a super wild woman, which is a woman of water. I keep saying that, but
he's
she's
hoping
good.
It'll stick.
She's a keeper.
Sometimes. Only on days that end in Y.
All the people that send me an email tell me you're a keeper, so you'll stay. Anyway, we've got a lot of stuff. We've got a great guest today. He's coming up in a few minutes. But I know Chris Ellen is not here today, and she's actually up in Reno checking in on her dad, which is good. She's a good daughter. And so she's going to be in between traveling and this and that, so she couldn't join us tonight. But we're going to cover some issues that are important. One of them that's really, really, really important to Tara is Potter Valley, California.
Okay,
to talk about.
It's not as much important as it is fascinating. I just find it super interesting, everything that's going on in Potter Valley. I mean, now you got Mendocino finally kind of getting what they want, but Lake Pillsbury is still out in the cold. I feel like I wish I could just ask, what is everyone's final play here? And I know that we can't do that today, but Rob, tell me what you think about the idea that, so now we've got Eel River. It's now not going to be dammed, but they figured out a way to make Lake Mendocino happy, but they're still going to completely remove this entire other lake with all these homes built around it. And they're like, no, but you guys in your tool deer, which is some, that's where the tool deer are, which is another environmental issue. So it's deer versus fish.
Yes.
It's that. Anyways, tell me what you think about that whole thing.
Well, let me clarify for some of the people who may not be familiar with Potter Valley, California. So Potter Valley's water challenge is centered around the Future Potter Valley Project. And it's a century-old hydroelectric and water diversion system that transfers water from the Eel River into the Russian River watershed to supply agriculture, municipal uses, wildfire suppression, and many other things. So there's a couple things that I think if we go down in an order, so we explain it a little better. So the key water issue is dam removal and decommissioning to remove Scott Dam and Cape Horn Dam, possibly starting in 2028. Correct? If I remember my facts correctly. So why don't you tell me a little about the environmental groups that are support the removing of it? And it's going to affect a whole bunch of things: salmon, steelhead access. But locals, I think, are really not too happy about it. And I guess they supply water for almost 1 million people, a little less than 1 million people.
So they've done the water modeling to sort of showcase that the supplies won't be as impacted as previously thought. There was a lot of concern about that supply just going away. And so they did some groundwater modeling recently, according to Ukiah Business Journal, that it's actually going to kind of be okay in terms of water supply. But it still doesn't address the deer issue, which is the deer come to Lake Pillsbury, and they're also, I think they're either threatened or endangered. I will figure that out before the end of this segment, but really it doesn't allow for everyone to win, even though that's kind of what that article portrayed, was now everyone wins. And I'm like, well, not everyone. Some people still get left behind. And, those are the balances that you're talking about, is are those things where at some point somebody's going to be left behind. And
Well,
so, no, go
well, I was
ahead.
gonna say, no, I was going to say take that out. It's eliminating a reliable water supply for, like I said, almost 1 million people. I think it's just shy of that. I don't know the exact number, but you got farms in there, you got ranches in there, and you got firefighting operations going. They need water. So what's going
I
to
know.
happen?
So that's where they're saying the Eel River will still provide that water in other ways. So and they'll be storing it in different avenues. And that's the sort of the topic of that article was local officials report stunning results from water diversion models. So because they'll still have a new eel Russian diversion facility. Oh, sorry, I work with El Rio all the time, so my brain just like can't do it. But the new eel Russian diversion facility, they need a better name than that, would be available to serve the needs of this community and those farms and what you're talking about. So there would be a diversion and storage capacity. It just would no longer look the way it does, which means the salmon wins, the farmer wins, but something still loses, and that's what's interesting to me.
Well, they win to a point. It's not going to be what they really need.
No.
And with the loss of water supply and the rural impacts, you got the Potter Valley diverts 60,000 acre-feet annually of the Eel River flow, and without it, domestic wells could dry up, farmlands could be abandoned, property values collapse, and so local experts note that over the past 20 years, diversion flows have already been cut by 60 to 80%, while salmon numbers continue to decline, suggesting habitat and other issues are the main problem. So how do you see that?
So that's always the balance that you're playing with, the fish versus everyone else. I feel like sometimes, I mean, I know that biodiversity is incredibly important. I just don't think fish are the only place to find it. So that's where it gets really tricky for me, just as somebody who cares both about the environment very deeply, but also somebody who cares about people very deeply. It's where do you find that balance, and how do you ensure that everyone's needs are being met? Maybe not their wants, but their needs. And so that's where it's going to kind of where the rubber's going to hit the road is when they actually do the diversion facility and see if it really does meet the need that exists there. And by the way, I did figure out the Tuliel thing. It's a species of concern. So that's the other component, is you're talking about the habitat of this other species. So it's like species versus species.
Well, species are a species, but
100%.
But do you think Sigma's going to play a part in this as well? Is that going to, no matter what they go forward on something, is Sigma going to hold the farmers back? Because it's real hard for them, especially the small farmers.
Yeah, I mean, Sigma's only holds you back as far as you're able to plan, I feel like. So if you invest, Sigma becomes much less of an issue. It's that a lot of people don't have the ability or the desire to invest in the storage requirements and things that they would need to be built in order to solve their issues, but also not make Sigma a problem. And
it costs them money.
It does cost money.
Big money.
Surprisingly, it costs big money, and it's more money than a lot of small farmers have, which is part of why funding for things like that, I feel like, should really be a statewide issue as opposed to a single farmer issue.
Yeah.
And I think that's the only way that that's going to be solved, is if we start to think about things financially as broader than regional for things that are regional sized.
Yeah.
And that's something that I know I do a lot of talking about, where it's like, there's this other thing and there's no funding. So, yeah, it's definitely, and, it's, I don't know what the solution is to that. I'm just going to be really honest. I don't know what that would look like. I don't know what the solution of that is, other than what we have right now doesn't work in the way it probably should. And we used to do it okay. So I think if history kind of could repeat itself a little bit, we might actually and not all of history. Not all of history is good, but there are things that we can look back and learn from. I feel like if we identified some of the ways we used to build things bigger and how we used to get those things accomplished. I mean, and not all of them were great, and we can learn from that too. But I feel like we're just sort of floundering.
That's a fishy word.
It is a fishy word. Oh, look at you. It's a little fishy.
Little fishy. Well, supporters of the dam removal argue, for free-flowing rivers and fish recovery. On the opposite side, you got opponents counter that the removal would release 20 to 40 million cubic yards of sediment behind the dams.
Yep.
And that's going to be a very spawning habitat and destroying water infrastructure. So local leaders, I think, have proposed compromises like fish ladders and infrastructure upgrades, but these haven't been rejected. But it's going slow. And do they really want to settle this, or one side just wants to say we win and move on?
I definitely think one side just wants to say we've won and move on. I mean, I definitely think that especially PG&E, who owns confusing, but who's been charged with decommissioning the dam, I think at this point. I think they're like, we're done. Like we didn't care about it when it was working. We certainly don't care about it now. And so the idea that they would invest this money is ridiculous because they just don't, that's not something that makes sense for their profit margin. So you have to have some other group step in, which if you're going to be maintaining a dam of that size is, again, a really big undertaking. And who does that? Where does the money come from? Why is it all those things? And I don't think it's easy. I think it's very, very difficult to find somebody who can purchase that. And I don't know that there's a solution that will make everyone happy. But my guess is that dam is going, and they're going to figure out other ways to get the water to those farmers. And I don't think it's going to be cheap. And I do think it's going to be an issue.
Yeah. The federal and regional attentions, it's gathered a lot of that. A project has drawn federal interest, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Interior Secretary meetings, even Southern California Water District's interest in buying the dams. And I think, was it Mendocino County approved like $500,000 for regional agencies to handle decommission costs?
Yeah, so the outsized interest, I feel like, in this dam is fascinating to me, especially as somebody who has a dam that I feel like we can't get enough interest in. I'm like, please, someone pay attention to our dam. It's so good. But it's been fascinating to me to see these individuals kind of go like, this is going to impact farmers, and finally realizing, I mean, this was just a year ago. This decommissioning has been going on for years and no one mentioned it. And then like suddenly out of nowhere, it's like the hottest topic that's ever been. And that's one of the reasons why Elsinore was deemed as, so Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District, which is the agency that tried to purchase the dam. Right. They came in so late because nobody was talking about it until last year. So it's sort of like too little, too late, but like, can we pay attention at a higher level way earlier on? You might be able to, if not save the dam, come up with an alternative. There's we didn't even try to come up with any alternatives. We just went, oh, no dam, it's fine. It's not maintained, we're just going to get rid of it. And actually Lake County was not even given a seat at the table originally, and it sounds like they're still not really given a seat at the table, even though that's where the majority. You're talking about Mendocino County. You're not talking about Lake County, which is where this is at. So, because they're just so small, they have no money. There's it's such a tiny. There's very few people who live there.
Well, since the hydroelectric is going to go away, how are they? They have another way of replenishing power. Generating power?
Great question. I haven't seen anything about the
No,
power.
I was just saying that. I haven't seen anything that relates to that. But, I worry about also wildfire and emergency water use. And the reservoirs, are critical for their wildfire suppression. Hold on, somebody's coming in. Our guest is. Let me click him in.
Yeah, there's no wildfire, nothing.
No.
And that's a very heavily wildfire, that's a big wildfire area, as we learned from the Napa fires just a few years ago.
Yeah, Mendocino and Sonoma counties, with two of California's largest recent wildfires, relying on the water. So I don't hear anything about that. I mean, everybody understands that. They know about it, but no one's talking. No one's talking about it.
And I mean, there are, again, if we talked about it and we had solutions like the Hella hydrant, which is this genius invention where they basically have an open air reservoir that's smaller, but that's specifically built for helicopters' little tubes to come in. Yeah. And they have those in San Antonio Pass area. They have them in Elsinore's area, Eastern Municipal. Like there's quite a few. Harupa Community Services District has one. So that kind of equipment exists, but again, nobody's really addressing the issues. They're just going like, "Oh, it's just done. Like we just did it. Yay, success." So,
I know project, if it gets decommissioned, local regional agencies are supposed to be exploring alternatives, such as raising Coyote Valley Dam at Lake Mendocino to increase storage. However, I guess that replacement projects could take decades, and I'm sure there's a big ticket dollar value for that. And where's the money going to come from?
Well, and it's a $564 million decommissioning. So before you're talking about building projects to support the other components of this, right? You're talking about $500 million before you're at moment one of diverting that water.
That's going to go to PR.
Yeah,
not really work on it. I don't know. It's amazing when I hear things like that and what they're going to do and not do. And people, it's been going on for years, but nobody knows about it until recently. And now all of a sudden it's getting to be a big hot burner. And I don't know. We're still getting word. We're waiting for word back from Mr. Becerra and Mr. Steve Hilton, who's running for governor in California, and working as we're working with Aqua to host a debate on water with them, and Aqua representatives will come on our show as well and be the hosts and moderators, but I haven't heard back from that. It's been about a week and a half, so I'm sure things go
give
slowly.
them a minute.
Well, I see them. They're out for dinners and fundraising, but we want answers. We want to know what they're doing. Everybody says they have a plan, but they don't tell you how they're going to get there. Or they have the idea.
They're not even talking about having a plan for water yet. Like they're not even there. They're
I guess the word is they have an idea, but they don't have a plan. And when you ask them, I'm not saying both of them or either. A lot of politicians just divert the question and don't answer it. They give you a lot of word salad. But hopefully they'll both agree to come on the show and have that. Whether it's a debate one-on-one or we do two separate ones, one with Becerra and one with Hilton, and that way they feel more comfortable. That way they get to say and they won't get interrupted. But that's not my choice. That's their choice, and we're waiting for an answer back. So,
and if housing's the most important thing that everyone's talking about, how are you going to have the water to support that housing?
Yes.
If you don't talk about the water.
Yeah, I was talking to the mayor of my city here, and I just found out he lives on the same street but around the bend. And so I'm gonna go see him Monday, because Buckeye, Arizona is in the top 5 fastest growing cities. It's been that way for the last 6 years. And Howard Hughes Corporation bought tons, and they want to put 100,000 homes in west of here. And they also were doing I think I mentioned before that with Rob Reiner. Unfortunately, he's passed away because he was murdered by his son. that was a big news thing. But he was an investor in putting a movie studio here. And they already started building some buildings, but they can't get water. And so they can't get permits to open the building. because there's no way that the water is going to come to them right now. So it's an interesting thing. I'm going to talk that over with the mayor when I see him on Monday. I have an appointment with him in City Hall, and then he's going to come on the show and talk about that. But yeah, water's important, but a lot of people don't want to talk about it, or they generically give stuff away and never tell you the whole truth. But today, right after we take our commercial break, we have somebody who's an expert in water. He was a general manager of Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. He's an environmental attorney. He's one of the nicest guys in the business, but he's also one of the smartest guys in the business. So he's going to join us right after our commercial break. So I think we should take that break because I'm anxious to talk to him. So that's good with you, Tara. We'll do that.
Sounds good to me.
All right, we're going to take a little break. We'll be back with just a few words from a couple of our sponsors, and we'll be back with our great guests. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Water is one of the biggest expenses for communities, HOAs, universities, golf courses, and resorts. So keeping those costs under control, especially when rates are increasing while water supplies are being reduced, are often essential to a customer's survival. Managing water requires multiple skills, which is why it's been complicated and difficult until now. AquaTrack brings multiple skills and technologies together to help large system users conserve outdoor water and improve the health of their landscapes. AquaTrack's professionals are certified landscape water managers and certified landscape irrigation auditors. The company offers audit services, upgrade advice, technical expertise, and water use monitoring. We already manage irrigation water for the largest homeowner associations in Arizona, and we're prepared to bring our knowledge and experience to help others, including landscapers and designers. Give us a call and hear how AquaTrack saved one HOA some 430 million gallons of water and $200,000 in annual water expenses. AquaTrack is Arizona-based, and you can reach us at 623-594-8689. That's 623-594-8689.
Cada minuto cuenta cuando estás en el trabajo. Entonces, ¿por qué perder tiempo buscando las herramientas que usas todos los días? Con la aplicación móvil de SiteOne, puedes personalizar tu pantalla de inicio para tener un acceso más rápido y fácil a lo que más importa. Una vez que hayas iniciado sesión, simplemente toca Personalizar en tu pantalla de inicio. Desde ahí, selecciona hasta 9 de tus herramientas más utilizadas, como listas, cotizaciones y calculadoras de una amplia lista de opciones. Desactiva las que no necesites y activa solo las que uses con mayor frecuencia. Coloca tus herramientas esenciales al frente y al centro. Reduce los clics, ahorra tiempo, mantente enfocado en el trabajo que importa. Y si tus necesidades cambian, no hay problema. Puedes actualizar tus selecciones en cualquier momento. Personaliza la app de SiteOne a tu manera. Obtén lo que necesitas más rápido con SiteOne Mobile. Every minute counts when you're on the job. So why spend time searching for the tools you use every day? With the SiteOne mobile app, you can customize your home screen for faster, easier access to what matters most. When you're logged in, just tap Personalize on your home screen. From there, choose up to 9 of your most used tools like lists, quotes, and calculators from an extensive list of options. Toggle off what you don't need and toggle on only the ones you use the most. Put your essential tools front and center. Reduce clicks, save time, stay focused on the work that matters. And if your needs change, no problem. You can update your selections anytime. Make the SiteOne app personal to you. Get what you need faster with SiteOne Mobile.
Southern California's Inland Talk Express is KCAA.
Welcome back to the second half of the Water Zone. I'm Rob Starr along with Ms. Tara Malawi, and we're happy that you tuned in. And I didn't realize we had a Spanish commercial, but that was from SiteOne Landscape Supply, and that's for our listeners who maybe only speak Spanish, so we're happy to play that. Anyway, I'm very excited today to have a special guest. His name is David Nahai. He has an extensive background in water policy, environmental law, and his leadership roles as former general manager and CEO of Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, and he's also the chairman of the Los Angeles Regional Water Quality Control Board. So I'm very excited to have this gentleman on, and Mr. Nahai, welcome to the Water Zone Show.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rob. It's a pleasure to be with you, and thank you for inviting me to be on your show.
The first time I heard you talk, as I talked to you before, was a couple of years ago when you had a project going, and I guess you call it a symposium or a meeting with people from Israel, and your joint ventures that you had with technology with them. And I was very, very much impressed with your speech and stuff. And I know I only had about 20 seconds to say hi to you and such, and then you were running off. We were going to talk following weeks, but your daughter was getting married, so we just both got busy with life and never connected again. But I'm very, very happy to connect with you again now. So, but I want to talk about a couple of things and hear your expertise on some things. And so during your tender at LAWP, you pushed extremely hard to reduce Los Angeles' resilience on imported water. So given California's increasing climate velocity, what are the most effective strategies Southern California cities can use to achieve long-term water independence? And I hope Sarah and I hope Steve Hilton are listening to your answers. So go ahead.
Well, thank you for that. And I caught a little bit of the dialogue that was going on before. And I think actually what was quite remarkable during the gubernatorial campaign altogether was that none of the candidates, including the candidate who was the most environmental candidate, really talked much about water, or were really asked about water, even though it is, so critical, existential, and yet it did not figure as it should have done during the gubernatorial, campaigns altogether. So I hope very much that you will be able to interview the two candidates, Becerra and Hilton, about their positions on water, because we truly do have challenges to deal with.
Absolutely.
In terms of reduction on imported water, yes, you're right. It was a central part of what we were trying to do at DWP during my tenure, and I think really the leadership at DWP on the staff level were also very much invested in that, and we're seeing a lot of results from that throughout the years since I'm not there anymore. But we've seen significant reductions in water consumption. It's a well-known statistic that in the city of Los Angeles, even though we have 1 million more people than we did in the 1970s, yet our water consumption has actually dropped, which is quite remarkable for a large city. And we can talk about the kinds of steps that were taken in a regulatory way in order to cause that to happen, if you'd like to get into it. But I think it also bears emphasis, Rob, and for your listeners who may not know this, is that really urban use throughout California, and not just California, urban use pales in comparison with agricultural use. And so if we want to truly talk about reduction of water usage, throughout the United States, we do have to concentrate not just on what is happening in urban settings, but also what is happening, in the agricultural arena, which is a difficult discussion to have.
Yeah, I know. A couple of years back, I attended the Irrigation Association and the Irrigation Institute, and they had a presentation on rebates and how much money they spend on rebates for residential homes using smart controllers and such. And then they looked at how much money they spent with the ag side, which wasn't very much at all. But if they put the money, at least I believe, if they put more money into the ag side, they would have saved a whole bunch more water. I mean, millions of acres feet by helping them develop new technologies and working with them for new processes and so forth. But they went for the homeowners, and that was good. That was good. I mean, all the water agencies participated in that, but there's still a lot that the ag has to take. I mean, it's a big part of the economics in California, and it's and outside of that, it's the backbone of our country. We got to have food, and there's a lot of water being used in that. But you look at the almonds and other types of crops and the industries, they took a good look at it, and they've made some strides. But I think a lot more money should be put on the other side. And I had that conversation with Secretary Karen Ross several times. She's been on about 4 times on our show over the 11 years, and she agreed with that. But there wasn't a whole lot more money put to that end of it. So, Tara, I'll let you jump in.
Well, just one thing is I wanted to congratulate the city of Los Angeles for winning the Wyland Mayor's Challenge thing, so that I know you guys conserve a ton of water just from our last interview last week with the Wyland Foundation. So, but I have to ask, and I apologize for asking because I know this is not a fun topic, but the reservoir. And as somebody who has a reservoir, like I by the way, I'm Tara Mullally. I work for United Water Conservation District, and we have reservoirs that provide water during wildfires. It's how was it to just know that it actually wouldn't have been the big deal that it was? Like, it's interesting because it caused so much PR issue and so much misinformation was going around about that. And I feel like because you have such a deep knowledge of LADWP and probably the San Ynez Reservoir, how frustrated were you with kind of what people were saying and not understanding how all of that works? And what are your thoughts on that?
All right. Well, I mean, thank you for the question, and I'll respond this way. I was not frustrated with the many poor souls who lost so much, and who were in such pain and grief. Many of my personal friends, lost everything, and therefore one cannot fault them for again all of the trauma that they were going through. However, I do fault those voices who knew better, and yet went out and tried to stoke, the fears and the anger, which was not justified. Look, even we take, I should say we took, but we would take reservoirs offline.
Of course you do.
There's something to be made.
Like, you have to. We're about to take a dam offline, like, in order to improve it. You have to be able to do that. That's why it was so disappointing to see the press cover it in the way that they did.
I agree with you. But also I think people need to understand that even if that reservoir was full to the brim, right, you cannot fly planes and helicopters because of really climate-driven 100-mile-an-hour winds.
Absolutely.
And we've got a whole ocean out there.
Well, right? And not only that, but you're talking about, electricity pumping water. Like, that's the thing that I feel like, and I deal with this in my own communication struggles, where you're going, it's not really the water that you're running out of, it's the ability to transfer that water. It's the pump station that's on fire that no longer has energy to be able to get that water to a fire hydrant. It's not that there's no water in the system anywhere. Trying to just describe that in a way that is impactful and makes sense to the average person is very difficult. And there's so much emotion and understandable emotion throughout that whole process that it's never the right time. It's never the right balance. So I was curious about that because of your history, and also you're still on the State Water Board, like all of that piece of it, the Los Angeles regional water board. So I was just curious about that.
But also, what happened in that particular situation is that there was so much demand on the water system that it's, I think people also need to understand that the system, not just in Los Angeles but elsewhere as well, is not designed in order to fight fires, especially not fire when there are embers, flying across, and just setting one home and one structure after another, that kind of inferno. I don't know that there was certainly the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power could not have dealt with that. It wasn't constitutionally designed in order to deal with that. But I believe that the main problem was that the planes and helicopters couldn't fly. They couldn't get airborne.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, NU Mutual is losing their entire system, like literally burned to the ground. So that's why I'm saying it's definitely, there's not really a water district in the world that can fight the type of fires that you're facing when you're talking about that level of inferno. And I'm a little concerned about policy being built from that emotion versus being built from a place that makes sense. So I'm now very hyper aware of like the wildfire, liability part of what comes out of that, because there is this emotion. Like, if only we'd done it differently, we could have prevented insert blank here. And you really can't. I mean, the way to prevent it is to never have it start.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, there are a lot of conversations and discussions going on, and I think that things can be done. I'm not talking about LADWP, but I'm thinking things that just overall in terms of how we build. Taking into account the fact that people need to build, and we need to enable them to do that. So without crushing financial burdens, we've got all kinds of challenges. Insurance, people can't get insurance. The cost of building materials that have just skyrocketed. So there are many challenges and much, I think, to deal with. But there are lessons there to be learned as well. I'm very much an optimist, and I believe that we will come out of this, stronger and better, but I'll leave it at that.
I always told my colleagues that when I grow up, I want to be like you. But they tell me I'm the same age as you, so I have to be there right now to make that happen. But on groundwater remediation, remediating polluted local aquifers such as the San Fernando groundwater basin has been a long-standing challenge. What policy or technical breakthroughs do you believe are necessary to fully restore the local groundwater reserves to potable standards?
Well, we have the technology, and a lot has been done. And we'll talk about the San Fernando Valley aquifer, which is, for Los Angeles, we get 10% of our water from that aquifer, so it's precious. And it's precious because of, as we move forward with, especially, indirect potable reuse, we need that groundwater basin to, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But much has been done. But here's the issue. I like to say that what, human, we'll call it ignorance, and in some cases human greed, has done, human ingenuity now has to fix. And what's happened with the San Fernando Valley aquifer, this is legacy pollution going back to the 50s when there was so much work being done there during the Second World War and in the aftermath of the Second World War, and it was thoughtless the way VOCs, volatile organic compounds, were allowed to just seep into the soil and contaminate this really precious asset of the city of Los Angeles. So, and and dealing with that legacy pollution has been very challenging. But much has been done, and much is continuing to be done. This was a focus of mine when I was at the department. But still, 50% of our wells in the San Fernando Valley aquifer have had to be basically deactivated because of that pollution, and because we don't want to blend the water and so on. But now there is a new issue that we have to deal with that started to rear its truly ugly head in the San Fernando Valley aquifer, and that is PFAS, what is known as forever chemicals. So this is now a whole new kind of challenge to deal with, because up to now, all of the technologies that have been deployed have been to deal with volatile organic compounds and other pollutants, but not really targeted to deal with PFAS. So this is something I know that the department is working on now. I think they're very hyper aware of it, and the regional board that I'm privileged to share has been asked to try to take a look and see exactly what the source of the PFAS is that's now, as I say, being found, in the groundwater basin, and is it emanating from companies there, or from other facilities, or so it's a new challenge to deal with.
Right. I want to get a legal question into you, because that's one of your specialties as an environmental attorney. Where do you see the biggest legal or regulatory friction points that slow down, say, critical water recycling and storage infrastructure projects?
We're just trying to keep it easy today.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a legitimate question. I'm just wondering in terms of what are the, in this arena, I don't distinguish between individual legal questions and the policy regulatory kinds of issues. So with respect to recycling in particular, I mean, I'll say this, pretty much irrespective of what the legal, regulatory, policy, public opinion, questions may be, we have to overcome them, because this is existential, and anybody, even reading a little bit about what's going on in the Colorado River, would understand that for us, wastewater recycling is something that well, to begin with, we have the technology. It can be done absolutely safely, and it's being done in Israel, in Orange County, in Singapore, around the world, in Arizona, by the way. I understand recycle quite a lot of its wastewater. Yes. I believe not yet for potable use, but a lot of recycling being done in Arizona. So the technology is there, and as I said, human ingenuity has to fix the problems that human ignorance has caused. So that has to be done. In terms of what the challenges are, well, first of all, it's the cost of it. It's expensive to do, and that leads us into all kinds of conversations that have to be held with ratepayers, and how to make sure that those who cannot bear the brunt of these payments aren't saddled with them, and how to do it equitably, and all kinds of things there to think about. And however, regarding both indirect potable reuse and now direct potable reuse, we have regulations in place. The State Water Board promulgated DPR regulations not so long ago. It's still new, and this architecture is there. One has to look at how it's going to be executed. But I believe the regulatory framework is there. That doesn't mean there aren't challenges. With wastewater recycling, there is a brine that is produced through the process, and one has to be able to dispose of that, safely and I say in a way that's environmentally responsible. So I don't know if that addresses your question, Rob, as to where you were going with that. But
no, it does. It does. It does. Sorry?
So getting back to the thing you were just talking about with the groundwater, not groundwater recharge. That's just what I do every day. With recycled water and what that looks like in a continually reducing status, right? So everybody who's saving water can continue to save water, and we get more and more efficient, and we get less and less water. That means there's less and less recycled water as well. And so you
Correct.
have this increased cost mixed with a decreased revenue because we pay variably for most of those things. What are your thoughts about what the future of recycled water could look like with this highly reduced sort of direction that we're headed? And then the other question that I have for you that kind of ties into this is what do you feel like is the solution?
okay, well, when you started off saying, I want to get back to, my first thought was you wanted to talk about the reservoir again. So
No, I'm not. I let that go. We did that. No, I like to just move along.
That's being dismantled. Question.
No, we won't talk about the continued ongoing tears and people's fears on that thing. We're going to let that sit at the reservoir that it is, and we're going to move on to what do we feel like is the solution to be able to build the things we need to build, to be able to have the population have homes that need to have homes, and still provide this resource in a way that is equitable. I mean, what do you think the solution might be? You're so smart. If you could solve it, what would you do?
That's right. Yeah. I can solve it. Look, I think the tools really in our toolbox that are available to us, and we'll talk about conservation and wastewater recycling and how the two work together, or how the two work in opposition. But they are really, first, more conservation. We have to do that. Aquifer remediation, we've talked about a bit. Stormwater capture, capturing our rainfall when we do have it, rather than what happens right now is that, or mostly right now, is that this runs off to the ocean, because that's how the system is designed. And wastewater recycling, and depending on the pace and the circumstances, possibly ocean desalination. Those are our tools. However, with respect to but I think first of all we have to understand that regrettably our leaders throughout the world have not done what needs to be done to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And that means that as a result of climate change, and we're seeing it all around us every day, we're going to have pressure on how much water we get. And as I said, the prime example is what's happened in the Colorado River, and actually the possibility is being talked about that we might actually have dead pool at Hoover Dam, which would be really, just unthinkable. Now, it's possible that this huge El Nino that's coming our way will just dump a lot of water, and that somehow that'll get us out of this situation. But as I see it, for the city of Los Angeles anyway, our imported water sources, the Colorado River, the State Water Project, and the LA Aqueduct, are all under pressure. So this whole system, from the days of Mulholland, was the thought was water's going to be abundant, and it's going to be very cheap, and it's going to be very reliable. And it's neither abundant nor reliable nor cheap. So the conversation that we all need to have is okay, what are we going to do about that? And we have to do, it seems to me, all of these things. Now, it's true, yes, that if we use less water, we will, as human beings, urinate less, and that will be less water at the Hyperion treatment plant or at the Tillman treatment plant to recycle. Yes, okay, but if we've used less water to begin with, that means that we've reduced some of that pressure on the imported water supplies. And I think that we're talking about conservation. We're not talking about killing people from thirst, right? There are limits to conservation. I now have a granddaughter who actually scolded her mother. Her mother was brushing her teeth. She's tiny. She's a toddler. And as her mom was brushing her teeth, she said to her mother, "Mom, you're wasting water," right? Of course, my daughter then called me immediately and said, guess what my daughter told me. So, but still, there's a limit to conservation because people need to drink, they need to bathe, they need to, and so on. So there, none of these are silver bullets, but I think taken together, if we're going to secure our water future, we must do them. And I don't think, the State Water Project, I don't think that'll dry up. I don't think that the LA Aqueduct will cease to provide us with any water. But truly, if we're going to keep our businesses, keep our people here, if my granddaughter is going to grow up in Los Angeles, we have a responsibility to chart a new water future because, just because of what we see going on at the COP conferences and promises made and promises broken, and our own federal administration trying to erase any discussion of climate change as if denying it means that it doesn't exist. So I'll stop there.
I feel like the real hitch in that is the cost. That's the only thing. Like, yes, if we could build all of that water, that would be amazing. I also think storage is going to be critical to all of those things. Because if we don't have the storage to capture the water, then we can't. Stormwater capture is great, but we need a place to put it. Right. And the aquifer remediation is definitely one part of that. I also think probably more storage needs to be built at some point because we're going to be getting those atmospheric rivers that we need to capture as much water as we possibly can. I mean, I'm only thinking about this mega, super, duper, massive El Nino and the water that we know we won't be capturing from that. And then the years that follow because we didn't capture that water because there's no more snowpack. But
you also got the issue of conserving water, like way back back in 2005 when we had the big drought. So much water, I think we had to reduce 25% minimum. Well, that was the goal, 25%, right? Yeah. And what was interesting to me is a lot of the public don't realize when you're not selling that much water, you're reducing the water, you still have the operating plants and operations that has to work. You can't
and yet they don't want to change to a fixed revenue stream because so many people rely on the variability of the rate to compensate for low-income users. Yeah. So that's it creates this whole circle. Anyways, I know we only have 2 minutes.
Well, last question because we have to turn it over to NBC News at 5. Oh. But real quickly, new people or whoever becomes the next governor of California, they call you up and say, David, you're brilliant. We want you to be the czar of water. What's the top 3 things that need to be done? What would be that in the minute and a half we got? Sorry.
Well, for me, the top 3 critical issues are climate change, and everything that flows from that calamity. But I think first of all, we do need to fight back against current federal policies that appear at every turn to try to lessen environmental protection. Things like trying to trying to redefine what is the waters of the United States, and the Supreme Court has a hand in that. So that's one. I think secondly, dealing with PFAS, because this is so ubiquitous and it affects everyone. You said three critical, but I'm going to go beyond that. I think cyber attacks on our water system has to be truly prioritized. For me, harmful algal bloom.
NBC News on KCAA Loma Linda, sponsored by Team